Using what you learn in this video, you'll be able to do over 10 million damage in a single bullet. And I say over 10 million damage because the testing skull only has 10 million health, so you'll be doing way more than that. Using your gun, you'll be able to eliminate entire waves of enemies, elites, and bosses with ease. You'll also be able to do the exact same thing with grenades. Also, as a quick aside, if you're trying to go for achievements, you'll be able to collect a lot of them like Millionaire, Tank, Greedy, Playing with Power, Recycler, Big Spender, Flex 1 and 2, Speedrun 1 and 2, Easy, Alter Damage, and a few others. If you want to get stuff like Unstoppable, you'll have to exit at about wave 210, as I exited at wave 180 and was only able to get 9.5k eliminations instead of the required 10k. Additionally, you cannot get solid gold, as you only have 14 legendary weapon mods you can pick from to start with. To get another 6 added into the loot pool, you have to unlock them, which is only possible after unlocking all weapons, at least at the time of the recording of this video. Now with that out of the way, the build. So, how do you get to this point? Well, the only thing you'll need is the cluster launcher. You might be able to achieve this with other weapons, however, for my brief testing, the cluster launcher is the best gun in the game, so it makes doing this the easiest. Additionally, you won't need to unlock any other mods for this build to work. However, having more mods can make things easier, but again, not needed. For the weapons, the essential weapon mods are as follows: Aura Shot, Juiced, Big Mag, Double Tap, Damage Shot, and Sharpshooter. Aura Shot is the most important because it scales really nicely with the cluster launcher and allows you to hit so many enemies. Then, combined with the increased damage, fire rate, and other things, it just makes this really good. Anyways, these essential mods that I just mentioned, you want to pick these over anything else until they're scaled to max. I'll explain what scaling to max is in a bit. You'll also want to get Trick Shot and or Recoil Shot in the early game. You can sell these later on if you need the room, because they're not really necessary. However, if you have the room, you can keep them because they do help a bit. These other mods here are just nice to haves. You can pick them over other mods if you see them just kind of rotating around. If you have the extra money. And these other ones here are just to fill up my remaining slots. They definitely help, but you don't need to worry about getting these at all if you're not able to. You can also swap them out for other mods if you have more unlocked, for example. Now, the essential grenade mods are as follows: Grenader, Layered Grenade, Crit Damage, Damage Grenade, Clone Explosion, and Bigger Boom. Again, pick these over anything else until they're scaled to max. Then, Spike Strike and Triple Grenade are great, however you have to unlock these, which is only possible after you have all weapons. That being said, you can still do this without these, but these just make the build a lot better. I'm also not sure if Clone Explosion needs to be unlocked. I know there was another legendary mod that I unlocked prior to doing this run, however I can't really recall or find the footage of what it was. Then these other grenade mods are just nice to haves again. And these following ones are what I just used to fill in the remaining slots. Something to note if you plan on swapping these things out is that you want to avoid reduced range with a grenade, since having a grenade that one-shots everything on the map is much better than a grenade that one-shots everything in a small area. So again, avoid any mods that reduce the range of your grenades. And finally, these perks are the essential ones for this build: Tony's Black Card, Special Delivery, Regenerating Armor, Grim Reaper, Speed Demon, Fortitude, Money is Power, Collector, Gemstone, Bonus Crystals, and Green Dice. It's a long list, I know. If I'm not mistaken, armor scales with health, so constantly increasing your health is good, which is why Fortitude is there. Additionally, Green Dice is good to increase odds, but it's also not super essential and can be avoided if you want. Apart from that, pick these over everything else until they're scaled to max. Now, early on, you might want to pick some perks that give health at the beginning or ends of rounds, but after you get Grim Reaper and Regenerating Armor, you can remove these because they won't really help you. Then these perks are the ones you want later on. This is just because having stuff like Power Armor and Vitality scale your damage really well, combined with the previous perks mentioned. And these ones over here are just the ones I use to fill up the remaining slots. They're helpful, but can be substituted out for anything else you think might be more beneficial. Now, I mentioned scaling to max a couple times, but what is that? Basically, everything that is percent based has a limit, that limit being 100%. Some of them are specified, like an evading mod that I showed earlier, or an evading perk, I should say, and that maxes at 75%. Others have a different limit, like Tony's black card. Even though the percent keeps going up as you upgrade it, the maximum discount it will ever give you, at least at the time of the recording of this video, is 75%. Also, regenerating armor only gives 6 armor at most because your armor limit is 6. So you can upgrade regenerating armor to give 7, 8, 9, or more, but it will only ever give you 6. Now we're going to move on to the greed perks. For the greed perks, you want these: Up the Ante, Rising Star, and Juggernaut. This is because having more enemies is actually a good thing. Why? Well, more enemies means more money, which means more upgrades. And you're already going to be one-shotting everything on the map, so having more enemies isn't going to affect you in a negative way at all. High Roller is another good greed perk, however, you want to keep it at level 1. Because at level 1, the success rate is 67%, but if you upgrade it to level 2, its success rate drops to 45%. It does give you more chests, however, you can get more chests and loot to spawn using other perks that are just more consistent. Slippery Slope is another good one, however, it's only good if you plan on doing a short run, like to Island 30, just to complete a nightmare run, or something else. Anything else, if you're trying to go 60 or above, I would avoid it completely. Now, these are the greed perks you want to avoid: Playing with Power, Double Trouble, and Cursed Lottery. Now, Playing with Power, this enables damage to yourself. This one doesn't work for 2 reasons. The first is that your grenades are going to be annihilating everything on the map. If there is damage to yourself, that includes you. The second reason is your weapon's projectiles spawn very close to you, with the cluster launcher at least, so your character will die just by shooting your own weapon, and there's nothing you can do to avoid this because it's just a bug, at least at the time of the recording of this. And Double Trouble, well, doubling enemy health just isn't good, especially when trying to one-shot everything. That should be a little bit obvious. And Cursed Lottery. This one is lose 100% of your max health, which isn't bad as an initial thing if you're trying to start off. However, this one has a problem where it stops your health from scaling and increasing properly, as it will only give you 10% of what the health increase is supposed to be. So, if you're trying to do a long run, your health is going to be very, very difficult to increase, and you're going to have a very, very hard time scaling in the higher waves. All the other greed perks aren't really that great, but they're also not completely detrimental like the previous 3. So you can pick any of the other ones if you want, and they happen to work for you. I can list out a few of them like Workaholic, Double-Edged Sword, Brute Force, Damage Seeker, etc. Again, you can pick them if you want, but I would generally avoid them. And in general with greed perks, again, you kind of just want more damage, health, and crystals at the cost of more enemies spawning, because those are just all good things. Now with the build out of the way, what about the run? You might be wondering, how do I get to this point? How do I set up the build? Well, there are obviously a few things you want to prioritize first. You'll normally want to pick islands with double chests, so long as they don't have the modifier where enemies can one-shot you. Because even though you'll be doing flawless on a lot of islands, getting unlucky and just having an enemy hit you for whatever reason just isn't great. And if you're already one-shotting everything, why would you add a modifier that just allows enemies to one-shot you, because you don't need the modifier that lets you one-shot them? When not having double chest islands, flawless islands are also a great choice to help you collect loot more quickly. But what about when there are no additional chests, and you just have to pick one island type over the other? Well, believe it or not, the first thing you want to focus on is the economy island type. This is because you want to get Tony's black card, and you want to get it to a 50% discount or higher as quickly as possible. Once you get that 56% or higher, you can purchase many items in the shop and dismantle them for more than what you purchased them for. This makes this the most effective way of gaining more crystals quickly. And you can do this all the way up to Island 180 and beyond. Unfortunately, this means that you will be spending a lot of time buying and selling, but it is the best way to scale up for literally no risk, and it allows you to scale up way faster than the game intends you to. Once you've gotten this maxed out, or close to it, you can ignore your economy islands completely and focus on damage, spike chest, and greed islands, which are the next most important ones. Damage is what's going to be doing most of your damage scaling. It shouldn't come as a surprise. The spike chests are good to get better loot earlier on, but once your health starts reaching really high numbers, and you have other mods like Fortitude, this one becomes more detrimental than beneficial. Greed islands are also great to get greed mods, especially early on, or even in the later game. However, you can also get greed mods from totems, but if you get a greed mod from a totem, it puts it in your inventory directly. And if you get one of those pure negative ones that I mentioned earlier, it could severely ruin your run, or just completely end it. Another important thing is the regenerating armor. This is a health perk, but you probably won't get it from the health islands. I've never had it spawn there before. I've only ever purchased it from the shop. And you want to get this before Island 60, as every island after that, enemy damage and elemental damage like burn is just so high that it'll melt through your HP bar. Which is again why you really want to focus on the economy islands early on to get stuff like Tony's Black Card and Special Delivery in order to increase the amount of stuff you can get from the shop. Once you've got a good setup, you can just go for islands with specific things you might be looking for, but odds are you'll be getting the majority of the stuff from the shop. So again, in the early game, focus on islands that give more chests and the economy islands, and in the later games, 60 and onwards, focus on avoiding islands that have enemies burst into projectiles or rings, if those are the modifiers for double chest islands. And the reason for this is because so many enemies spawn in the later waves, this increases the chances of failure. And if you don't have your regenerating armor and your health really high, they can actually end up one-shotting you or just melting through all your armor stacks very, very quickly. And that's it. There really isn't anything else to it. A lot of it actually does come down to luck and your spawn rates, especially in that early game, but using this build and run method increases your odds and chances of getting consistently good runs. This was all recorded on easy. I've done shorter runs on normal and nightmare, and the same rules apply there. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully I've been able to help you on future runs. Good luck and have fun.